Namaskar and welcome. So today, we're going to dive into a socio-economic philosophy you've probably never heard of before. It's called PROUT, which stands for Progressive Utilization Theory. And really, it's this huge vision for a completely new kind of society, one that's all about moving forward together.
You know, the entire idea really kicks off from this ancient Sanskrit principle. And what it's saying is that a real society isn't just, a bunch of people who happen to live in the same place. No, it's a dynamic, collective journey. It's a group of people who have actively decided, hey, we're in this together and we're moving towards the same goal.
So, if we're all moving together, what does that actually look like? Well, PROUT gets really specific here. It defines society as a place where every single person feels responsible for everyone else. If some people have raced ahead while others are struggling to keep up, it's the job of the whole group to help them. I mean, that's a world away from what we see today, right? Where some have more than they could ever need while others are literally starving.
And to deal with these massive problems, PROUT makes this really important distinction. On one hand, you have Artha. Think of this as a temporary fix, like a Band-Aid. You give someone money for food, and yeah, you've solved their hunger for today. But then there's Paramartha. This is about a permanent solution. It's not about giving handouts. It's about designing a society where things like food shortages just don't happen in the first place.
All right, so that's the big picture. Here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the problem PROUT calls exploitation on 3 fronts. Then we'll dive into its economic blueprint, see how its vision goes way beyond just economics. And finally, we'll touch on the key principle that keeps this whole idea fresh and always moving forward.
So first up, the diagnosis. According to PROUT, the exploitation that's really holding us back isn't just about money. It's actually happening in 3 totally different but deeply connected parts of our lives.
Okay, so this is where things get really interesting. PROUT takes our idea of capitalism and just explodes it. First, you have physical capitalism. That's the one we all know, where money and resources get concentrated in the hands of a few. But then it goes deeper. It identifies intellectual capitalism, which is when smart, educated people don't use their knowledge to help everybody. And finally, there's spiritual capitalism, where people hoard spiritual insights for themselves instead of using that wisdom to uplift the whole community. All right. So if that's the 3-part problem, what's the solution? Well, PROUT doesn't just diagnose, it offers a really comprehensive answer. Let's dig into its economic blueprint, which is a system designed specifically to fight these 3 types of exploitation.
Now, this is absolutely crucial. The cornerstone of the whole PROUTist economy is this: 100% guaranteed employment for all local people. And the goal here is not welfare or government handouts. The idea is that the right to the minimum necessities of life is earned through meaningful work, not through creating dependency.
And what does that work get you? Well, the whole system is built to guarantee these 5 things for every single person. This creates a solid foundation, a safety net for everyone. And only after everybody has this basic foundation can any extra wealth be given out to reward people with special skills who help society move forward even faster.
So how on earth do you guarantee all of that? What's the engine driving this whole system? Well, it all comes down to cooperatives. Co-ops are seen as the perfect model because they're run by the community, for the community. They get rid of the profit-hungry middlemen who are usually the ones driving exploitation.
And the whole industrial setup is basically a 3-tiered system. You've got your key industries, think utilities and big infrastructure, managed by the local government. Then the majority of medium-sized businesses are run as cooperatives. And there's still plenty of room for small private businesses. So it's this really practical mix of public oversight, collective ownership, and individual creativity.
Now you might be thinking, wow, this sounds super rigid and top-down, but it's actually the complete opposite. Economic planning is decentralized, right down to what's called the block level. Every community actually designs its own economic plan based on its own unique resources, its own problems, and its own culture. This makes sure that development is actually helpful for the people it's supposed to be for.
But PROUT's vision doesn't just stop with the economy, not even close. Its ultimate goal is total human liberation, and that means we also have to have freedom in our minds and in our cultures.
And that leads us to this really big question. Is having enough food and a place to live enough for us to be truly free? PROUT's answer is a definite no. That's just the starting point. The next frontiers to liberate are social and cultural. And a huge piece of this social liberation is women's rights. The philosophy is crystal clear on this. Free education for every woman, zero discrimination anywhere, and complete economic and social security. In fact, it goes even further, saying women should be the vanguard, the leaders of a new revolution. I mean, think about it. How can a society truly move forward if it's holding back half of its people?
Okay, and this next idea is maybe one of the most powerful in all of PROUT. It's called socio-economic exploitation. The theory is that if you suppress a group's native language and their culture, you create a kind of collective inferiority complex. And when people are made to feel like their very identity is less than, their spirit is weakened, and that makes them much, much easier to exploit for economic gain. So real freedom has to include cultural and linguistic freedom.
So we have this incredible vision for changing our economy and our society. But the world changes, right? What stops this from just becoming another rigid, outdated ideology? Well, that brings us to its final and maybe its most important principle. This is like PROUT's built-in insurance policy against becoming dogma. It's called the fifth fundamental principle. And what it says is that how you apply the theory must change depending on the time, the place, and the people involved. It demands flexibility. It demands progress. So PROUT isn't a fixed rulebook. It's a living framework that's designed to keep evolving forever.
So at the end of the day, PROUT is really a call to action. It's a challenge to build a society that's not just fair with its money, but one that is liberating for our minds and our spirits too. A society that is always, always moving forward, leaving us with this powerful and simple final thought. Go on progressing undaunted.
A philosophy that's all about constant, undaunted progress. That was our quick look into the Progressive Utilization Theory. So if this explainer sparks some new ideas for you, please show your support and follow the channel for more deep dives. Thanks so much for joining us.